Questions? I got a question over here.
Not so much a question, just maybe kind of a reminder too that everything we learned here also can be put into emails and also social media. Think about it in social media, because one of the things that we have such an issue with is we want to share information from other agencies, but it's in a PDF. And if you keep forwarding it, it's not accessible. So all you got to do is just, take a moment, put some information in the, in the part where you write it out. In the emails, the same thing. You don't have to just send a PDF. You can write out some basic information. Because we do, the Nevada Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities, we do get emails back saying, this information, this flyer you forwarded me from XX agency, I can't even read it. And we say, well, it is not our job to make it accessible. You need to go back to them, and I guarantee you they will be going back to you. So, just simple things.
Yeah.
Twitter, I know, has really easy accessible. They've made alt text really great, everything.
So I can't tell you who all of our clients are, only ones who have given us permission, but I can tell you that Twitter is one of our clients. So they have done a bunch of stuff. Facebook has actually gotten a lot better recently. You can put alt text in an image now, which is great. It's a little hidden. It's not like super obvious that you can, but it is possible. Generally, as a general rule, what we tell people with social media is great, but don't make that your only form of communication. If you put in a Facebook post, have it link back to your website where you have the accessible information, where you have control over that accessibility. Now, granted, if Facebook's not accessible, it's probably not you that's going to get sued, it's Facebook, because they're the bigger company. But still, you want to make, for people usability, you want to make sure that people have access to that information. And that's, again, that's good social media design. You want to draw people to your website, because just seeing your post on Facebook is great. But really what you want to do is get them to your website and have them look around and see what your other services you have to offer. So good social media design is about driving traffic back to your website, not Facebook for the sake of Facebook. And we could spend all day talking about social media campaigns, but that's outside of the scope of accessibility. I'm happy to do it though, but any other questions? I know that's a lot of information to throw at you in 3 hours, huh? Yeah, it's a ton of stuff.
You mentioned Google Analytics, that you were able to check and see how, like, if they looked at something. Mm-hmm. Is that just something on Google?
Yeah, so you have to install a script on your website, and most websites have Google Analytics, or most have Google Analytics, and it just tells you traffic, how many people came to your site. Unfortunately, there's no way to tell if that person was using JAWS, because it only will see the browser. It doesn't see the JAWS which is on their operating system. So you don't get that information, but you can at least find out where your traffic is and decide, hey, this is content that's not accessible and nobody's looking at it. Let's get rid of it instead of trying to fix it. Instead of spending that energy there, let's go spend our energy somewhere else. Any other questions?
Awesome. Do you have any recommendations for Outlook? You had mentioned emails.
Accessible emails.
Yeah. Like our footer, so state agencies were required to have our
your signature.
HHS, yeah, our whole signature has links, and that has all those pictures and fun stuff on it. So, I mean, that in general, but then try to keep it simple, right? No backgrounds and black text, Arial font, whatever.
Yeah, all that's good. I mean, if you're doing design of like email newsletters, that gets a lot trickier. It's still good HTML at the end of the day, so you still have to make it accessible using those. Unfortunately, and newsletter emails is the bane of my existence. I used to have to do those, and I hate them with a passion, partially because email clients don't support modern HTML. They only support older HTML, so you have to use tables for layout. There's no way around it. Not everything will support it, and stuff like that. So there's ways to make that accessible, for just like your signature, that picture you have in your footer, we have one in ours that we're supposed to use. There's in the signature, you can add alt text to that image. Because again, that's just that signature and that formatting, those links, that's just HTML again. So as long as you're using the tools, Outlook tools to do that, make sure your images all have alt text. If you're putting an inline picture in your email, make sure it has alt text.
Thank you. There's an accessibility checker like for email as well.
Yeah,
For email, okay.
yeah.
You have to search for it.
Yeah, that one is not as good, especially if you're doing complex newsletters and stuff. Generally, what I did is I built the newsletter as a web page and then checked that, and then I copied it into the MailChimp. It was the one we were using, so I copied the source code into MailChimp.
So that works okay.
Yeah, as long as you've made that accessible.
I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, yeah. Now MailChimp's got some templates, and they're generally accessible.
We don't use MailChimp, we use a different thing called Boomerang.
Yeah, Boomerang's the same thing. They've got templates.
On our website, and
Yeah, yeah, and then import the URL. Yeah, that's the way I always did it, because that gives you an archive on your website as well.
right, yeah.
So that's a nice thing about it, doing it that way. Any other questions? All right, I've got one other handout for you.
Did everybody sign the sign-in sheet? You know, a couple people came in afterwards.
And this was just something I found from a university it's just a checklist for checking your Word documents to make sure they're accessible. So again, it's all guidelines. None of these things on this kind of stuff are hard and fast rules, but just some things to pay attention to. Thank you all for coming.